Dello heavy-duty engine oils. Proven engine protection at prices you can rely on, giving you even more reasons to choose Dello. So I was recently given the very unique opportunity of running the CAT command chair at my house. And so this review is going to come in kind of three parts. I want to talk about kind of the overall experience of what it took to get set up and kind of get into the machine. I want to talk about what it was like transferring from being an in-the-seat operator to running a remote control piece of equipment. And then finally, I want to talk about kind of the future of the technology and what I think this is going to unlock. Caterpillar rolled in about 8:30 in the morning, and within about a half hour to 40 minutes, we were live and ready to rock. It involved backing the trailer into the driveway. We threw down some outriggers to stabilize the trailer so it wasn't so bouncy when we were moving around in it. And then they pulled out a nice Starlink satellite dish and put it out in the yard and got it doing its thing to acquire a satellite signal. Now, while Starlink was getting set up and acquiring its signal, the individuals from Caterpillar were pulling TV screens out of protective cases and getting them mounted up on the racks of the CAT command chair. Within about 20 to 30 minutes, that was all done. Starlink was locked on, and I got the go-ahead to come aboard the trailer. That is literally the amount of setup that it took to get this thing off the ground. Now, the experience stepping into the trailer, especially Caterpillar's trailer, was pretty awesome. It is like a miniature office, complete with a mini fridge and a microwave. You have a little prep area in case you wanted to make some lunch while you're in there. It's air conditioned. The CAT command chair itself was exactly what you would expect from a Caterpillar product. It was very premium, it was comfortable, the controls were ergonomic, everything was adjustable. It was a very comfortable seat that you could easily spend a day in. Now, as far as screen layout goes, your very top screen in this is a courtesy view from Caterpillar, if you will. This is not something that I would expect to have when I ran CAT Command, because this screen was used to remote tap into their security cameras at the facility that we were running the machine at. This view was lagged, so it was not a true real-time view. Sometimes it would lag 2 or 3 seconds behind our actual operational controls. And that's okay. The way they were bringing that signal into the trailer wasn't meant to be a real-time signal. It was more of a courtesy view to give me an overview of where I was on the job site. And we'll get into why that was important here in a minute. Now, directly below that is your main screen with all of your very real-time camera views. Now, for your views, it's going to depend a little bit machine by machine, but for the most part, you're going to have one direct view from a high point, mostly on top of the cab. You're going to have a view looking straight out in front of the machine. Directly below that, you're going to have a view looking out the back of the machine. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll have a right-hand view, so a camera angle pointed to the right. The left hand, we have a camera angle pointed to the left. Now, below that screen, your kind of main view screen, we have two touch screens. The one on your right-hand side is going to be a direct mirror of your screen within the machine. So it's going to have all of your engine parameters. That's where you're going to navigate through your menus of the machine, and it's touch screen. So it's just like you were there sitting in the machine. My left hand is going to be all of my grade control options. And again, touch screen, just like you're sitting there in the machine. If you're familiar with the Trimble grade system, it's just like you're sitting in the cab of the machine, except you're using a touchscreen sitting in this trailer. And I ran an excavator, a dozer, and a 938 loader. Now, we started in North Carolina. Even though I'm in Michigan, I'm operating a remote control loader about 2,000 miles from the house, and it's responsive. As soon as I pull back on the joystick with very, very minimal delay whatsoever, almost not noticeable, the bucket starts to raise on the machine. As soon as I put it in reverse, I hear a backup alarm because all of the machines are equipped with microphones so that you can hear what's going on. And this turned out to be really critical, especially with the loader. Now, where it got interesting and where I was uncomfortable the most in all of the machines, this was consistent, was the spatial awareness component. If you think about running a machine traditionally, we're able to look all over the place, look around, and our body is used to being in 3D space, and so I can look behind me and I know that my loader's cocked over at about a 30-degree angle for reverse, and I've got that barricade wall about 30 feet behind me. No problem. I was able to do that in a glance. When you're operating in a two-dimensional world based off of video cameras, That's a very different experience because I'm looking at what I'm doing going into the pile. And as soon as I flip my loader into reverse, I don't know where my back end is because I don't have any feel or feedback from the machine. And so I'm not able to kind of feel how I'm bouncing around, which is really how, as operators that sit in the seat, we gauge where our butt is sticking. And so I have to look in the camera. But I don't look over my shoulder. The camera's just to the left here. So I need to look at that camera. Okay, so I'm roughly cocked over that far. Okay, now I'm gonna look at down, not behind me. I need to look down for my rear view camera to know that I've got about 30 feet from the barrier wall. We're gonna start backing up, but it's really hard for me to gauge speed because you have this fisheye effect on your cameras because you have to have a wide field of view. And so it's hard to gauge speed when you're not used to it. And so very quickly, I found one of the most challenging parts of operating this equipment remotely is just the spatial awareness component. It's very difficult for your brain at first to build a picture in 3D space of where you're sitting, where you need to turn, where you need to go, and how fast you're going, and how close you are to things. That just took time. Now, I will say it got better over time. And had you given me, I don't know, probably 3 to 7 days in this machine, that probably would be almost a non-issue. But as a new operator coming in fresh, that's used to sitting in the seat, that's probably the biggest drawback to going full remote control, is you just lack that spatial awareness. Now, another thing you're going to lack as well is the fact that you don't feel any vibrations from the machine. If you think about it, just running a dozer, you are using the snot out of your butt. It's feeling everything, including one of the things I didn't even think about until I ran this, the decel pedal. I continuously brought my machine to a stop. Whether I was pushing dirt or just going in reverse to get around the job site, I would constantly bring that machine to a stop because I thought I was just slowing myself down to go over a windrow, trying to be easy on the machine. And it turns out I pushed the decel pedal enough that it came to a complete stop. And then you let off what you think is a little bit, and then bam, we slam over the windrow because you let off too far. Now, I apologize to Kat for abusing the machine a little bit. It wasn't intentional, but that was one of the more difficult things about running the dozer is just not having that feedback of the machine of how much did you lower the engine RPM? How much did you slow down the machine to go over that windrow? And again, because we're on a two-dimensional screen, how big is that windrow? Because there were several windrows that kind of looked smallish, and then you go over them, and turns out they're a little bigger than you were anticipating. Cleanup work was a little difficult in the dozer as well, just simply due to the screen resolution. You have to think that we are broadcasting multiple camera views along with all the data that needs to go back and forth through a Starlink satellite. You can't really have beautiful 8K crisp pictures. We're going to have to compress that video feed a little bit. And unfortunately, that means it does get a little grainy. And so where I really struggled here wasn't so much in the bulking. Bulking was pretty easy, and most of my relatively easy grade work wasn't bad. But if I had a little windrow to clean up, it was difficult to figure out exactly if there was a windrow and exactly how tall the windrow was. And so cleanup work in this, if you weren't using any sort of assist tools or grade control, would be extremely difficult. But that's where Caterpillar's kind of anticipated this, and that's where a lot of these features that we as operators probably leave off 90% of the time in the cab start to come into play. But before we get into that, I want to take a second to tell you about the sponsor of this video, Chevron Lubricants.
These cranes work around the clock for months at a time. If one of these engines ever goes down, it costs more than our reputation. Switching to Delo 600 ADF, it's been a game changer. We've had no issues with clogged DPFs. I mean, no regen lights, no cleaning, no replacements, nothing. This oil goes beyond anything we've ever used. I choose proven protection that keeps our cranes on the job. I choose Delo 600 ADF.
Cleanup work in this, if you weren't using any sort of assist tools or grade control, would be extremely difficult. But that's where Caterpillar's kind of anticipated this, and that's where a lot of these features that we as operators probably leave off 90% of the time in the cab start to come into play. Now, I am going to apologize to Caterpillar because I cannot remember all of their terminology, but I'm going to try to do you justice, Cat. So one of the things you start to utilize is not necessarily slope assist. There is another feature that will hold the blade in a position as you track forward, and it will keep that blade at a level that will keep you on whatever slope you were at when you stopped touching the handle. And so this whole business of hoopties goes away, because now I can, as an operator, remote control. I can set my blade knowing that I'm going downhill at a 0.5%, and that's what I want to be at right now. I can just let off of my handle here. I don't have to keep feathering it like I would in a traditional dozer to make sure I'm not getting hoopties. The machine's going to do that on its own because of this feature. You're also going to have features that help you load the blade up efficiently without getting a bunch of track slippage, because you don't have any feel. You don't necessarily know when your tracks are slipping. And so you start to rely on a lot of these features. Now, when I'm in person, I turn these features off. They're useless to me as an operator because I know how I want to run the machine. But when you get in this remote control scenario, all of a sudden you find that these features are actually tremendously helpful, and you're outright reliant upon them in order to work the machine efficiently. I would say out of the 3 machines I ran, the most difficult by far was the dozer. And yet, after lunch, after I had had an hour or so of seat time, I was starting to kind of get into the groove where I could see where you could be tremendously efficient in this machine once you kind of got your brain wrapped around the spatial awareness component, and once you kind of started to deprogram your operator brain from I have to do all the work to I'm going to let the machine do this for me. And that's a little hard for us as operators. We pride ourselves on our abilities to keep that grade nice and flat with our hand. We pride ourselves on the ability to knock that little windrow down. And what you start to realize is, no, what we're going to do is we're going to let the machine do what it's good at so that I can do what I'm good at as an operator. So I can manage, I can maintain the site, I can think about where we're going next, I can think about the bulk things that need to be done. And I'll let the machine take care of the kind of small detail work that I'm really unable to do because I have no feel from the machine. So really, overall, I think if you were to give this to an in-the-seat operator, again, for myself, I think 3 to 7 days. For most operators, I think you give it to them for about 2 weeks or so. They're going to start to find that groove. In its current iteration, we're really just utilizing this for scenarios where there's danger involved, right? A coal power plant where you need to maintain the coal stockpile, but there's the possibility of cave-ins where it would bury the machine. Fantastic. We can do that remote. Big open pit mines where if you go too far, you might go over the edge, or there could be some collapses, or whatever the dangerous scenario is. No problem. We can remote operate that D11, that D10, no sweat. Marine applications. If we're cleaning out ships and you're worried about a material handler smashing the guy down in the hold or the vessel capsizing, perfect application for CAT command. But I don't even think we're scratching the surface here. Where I envision this in the next 10 to 15 years is this will start to replace our traditional operators. And you may think that sounds crazy, but hear me out. We have a dwindling labor force, and we have no one replacing those experienced operators, which means that you're pulling out of a local talent pool that is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But what if, as a contractor, you didn't have to pull out of the local talent pool anymore? What if you could expand that to the US? What if you could expand it to the globe? And now all you have to do is go get machines and equip them to be remote operated and make sure that your operators have all of the information they need to do the tasks that you need to do. Now, I'm not going to talk about pricing at all on here, but I did ask the question, how expensive is it to get this really fancy, snazzy CAT command chair and outfit a machine and have the radios? And I will say this, it's not nearly as expensive as you would have thought right off the rip. It's expensive, don't get me wrong, but it's not nearly what I thought it would have been. And so I can 100% see contractors turning their business model on end and going, okay, I'm going to go hire 5 remote operators, and I'm going to go invest in getting all of my machines to where they can be remote operated. And so now what I'm going to do to prep a job site is I'm going to have my lowboy driver drop off my dozer and my excavator in this corner of the job site. I'm either going to make sure that my operator has a 3D site plan and it's already been surveyed and engineered, or I'm going to make sure he has benchmarks and he has some stakes or some marks on the ground of where the actual building pad or driveway needs to be. And as long as my operator has all of that information, I can literally drive away from that job site. Make sure the master's on the machine, but then just drive away. And then I can see the flip side of that is, I as Bryan Furnace have been hired as a remote operator. And by the way, that's not even necessarily for just your company. I can absolutely see this becoming a freelance operation to where maybe Bryan Furnace buys the Cat Command chair and you, as your excavating company, you just hire me as a freelance operator. I could see it going both ways. But regardless, me, Bryan Furnace, I eat my breakfast, I drink my coffee. In fact, I bring my coffee into the office here because I don't have to wear any PPE. No steel toe boots, no pants, nothing. I don't need a hard hat. And so I'm going to go log into my dozer on site number 1 where I have to do some grade work. And because I have my 3D site plan already in my grade control system, away I go. I'm off to the races. I literally don't need anything. I'm off to the races and I just start going. And so let's say by noon, I complete my task. Now, on to job 2. Turns out that's the basement dig. And I only have to dig a portion of it because you, as the excavating contractor, you've got another set of operators on the other side of the globe that while we're all sleeping over here, they're able to work your equipment at night. We're talking 24 hours of production now, assuming you're in an environment that allows for equipment running at night. And so that operator wasn't able, because he's also staggering a bunch of jobs, he wasn't quite able to finish this basement dig. So what I do is I hop on a Zoom call really quick with the current operator who's wrapping up, and we have a quick conversation. Hey, where did you leave off? Where's your benchmark at? Anything I need to be aware of? Nope, we're all good. Okay. And then I log into the machine. And he's still got it sitting there, engine idling. The machine just goes right back to work with a new operator. And I go finish that basement dig out. That took me an hour and a half. So now we're, 2:30 in the afternoon? And so now I'm going to go park my excavator. I'm going to log out of that machine. And I'm going to log into my dozer on this next job site. Turns out I've got to put in a driveway pad and a barn pad. And I've got stakes for all of that. And then I have a benchmark in the back corner. Well, that's no problem because all of these dozers are coming with 2D grade control on them. Boom, I do my barn pad and everything. And it's about 6:30 or so when I wrap up. And guess what? My counterpart from the other side of the world beeps in with a Zoom call. And I pass the torch to him. Can you imagine what that looks like on future job sites? I know for a lot of the industry, this is scary and it's weird and oh, that'll never happen. But really think about what that unlocks when you're now pulling from a talent pool that is global. Think about the flexibility that gives you as a contractor as to what you can do. This has the potential to completely change the way contractors are thinking about their labor force and about the workflow on the job. And that's what gets me so hyped about this sort of technology. It is not that far into the future where it is going to be a regular occurrence that you see a dozer or an excavator or a loader or a scraper completely empty doing a nice productive day's worth of work. This is such a cool experience, such cool technology. So huge, tremendous thank you to Caterpillar for being willing to drive this thing to my house and drop it. It was an absolutely awesome experience. And as always, I hope this helps you in your job and your company, and we'll catch you on the next episode of The Dirt.